We are live. We are cooking. We are rolling. This is Credit Banking Mastermind number 26. Man, I'm super excited. My name is Joseph Smith. This is Ray Fleming.
Good evening, everybody.
And we want to give a big shout out to all the folks that are in on the Mastermind. Again, welcome to Jared, Maggie, Raul, Reginald, Tierra, Victoria. Welcome on board. We're going to be counting on you to participate in this mastermind, sharing your thoughts and opinions and asking really good questions. The pressure's on. You have to ask the really good questions. Because if it's a stupid question, I'll let you know. Just teasing. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can jump right on in. All right, here's sharing my screen. And oops, no, that's what I actually wanted. Let's go ahead and start my presentation and then actually share the presentation and not the presenter screen. There we are. Here we go. And folks, what are we talking about? Same thing we talk about each and every Tuesday night, credit banking and the search for the lost American dream. I'm super excited because today we are going to be going over how to calculate your financial freedom goal. We're going to be talking about how to budget, specifically how to create positive monthly cash flow through increasing our income and decreasing our expenses. We're going to be talking about debt to income ratio. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff tonight. So let's jump right on in. Ray, will you do us the honors?
I am not, well, we are not licensed attorneys, accountant, financial advisor, broker, or any other licensed individual. Even if we have those licenses in this setting, we are not acting in that capacity.
Okay, thanks, Ray. All right, folks, do your own due diligence. Let's move right on. We are the Wise Guys in Ties, wise in the ways of helping you eliminate your debt very quickly through the credit banking strategy. And each and every week, we help folks learn different aspects. We've come full cycle, and we repeat this about every 5 to 6 weeks. We repeat to kind of go over what we've done in the past. So we're back to talking about budget this week, amongst other things. So this is pretty exciting. So if you're just tuning in and this is your first time, man, how exciting, because you're starting with the first thing that we usually talk about when it comes to building business credit. So
our credit banking.
Did I say business credit?
You said business credit?
We talked about that last week, combining business credit with credit banking. Someone just remind me where I'm at, and then we'll be fine.
It is Tuesday.
All right.
I got a reminder of that earlier.
Okay. Sorry. We are working on credit banking today. Yes. And the search for the lost American dream. All right. Oh, hey, here's something really important for you folks to know. If you are watching us on YouTube, if you are somebody who casually tunes into the Velocity channel, and we are super grateful to be coming to you this week on the Velocity channel. And a special shout out to CJ Wallace, who's the host of the Velocity channel. We've been coming at you for the last 26 weeks on the Velocity channel. This has been great. But folks, right now, what's going to happen starting next week is we will no longer be on the Velocity channel. And so what's going to happen is if you want to catch this content, if you really like these credit banking masterminds, if this is what if this is something that is a benefit and a blessing to you, you're going to have to come over at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 8 p.m. Central or 9 p.m. Eastern. You're going to have to come over to the Wise Guys in Ties YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Hit the bell. That way you'll get a reminder, an email reminder when we go live on Tuesday night. So this is the last time that we will be bringing the credit banking mastermind on the Velocity channel. We've loved our run here. It's been a great 26 weeks, and we're going to keep it going for another 26 weeks, but we're just moving channels. We're moving to our own channel, and we want to invite you to continue to participate and follow along. If you happen to tune in next week and you're on the Velocity channel, we will have a billboard or a sign saying, go over to the Wise Guys in Ties YouTube channel. All right. So enough about that. Let us talk about what is credit banking. You know, each and every week we have new folks that join us, and they're like, what is this credit banking?
That's always a great question.
And so someone's like, I thought it was velocity banking. And then someone else will still say, I thought it was cash flow banking. I thought it was sweep strategies.
It goes by so many names.
It does.
But the principles.
Yes, the principles are still the same. And this is how I define credit banking. Credit banking uses lines of credit to free up cash flow to transfer highly expensive amortized loan interest into simpler and less expensive forms of interest. This has the effect of radically decreasing the total number of loan payments, which in turn reduces the total amount of interest paid, which has the result of aggressively paying down the principal loan balance in about 1/3 the time. I mean, that is phenomenal. That's amazing. And wait till you get to our case study. So each and every week, we cover so many amazing topics. Like today, we're going to be going over what is obviously credit banking, but we're going to be talking about how to calculate your financial freedom goal. We're going to be going over budgeting and how to create positive monthly cash flow. We're going to be talking about debt to income ratios. And then our case study this week is looking at somebody who just got into a 30-year loan and how we can actually eliminate that entire mortgage in 9 years.
Oh, yes.
So you got to stay tuned for that. If you're like, wait a minute, how do I eliminate a 30-year mortgage in 9 years without getting an extra job, without working overtime, without making extra payments, without cutting back and only eating every other week, right? No, we're talking about how to do this without making huge modifications to your expenses or your income, but really just changing the way you move your money through your accounts. All right, so what is credit banking? That's defined for you on your screen. A lot of people say, well, why should I do credit banking? Well, because it rapidly reduces your debt and it increases your monthly cash flow and it increases your cash availability and it creates financial independence and it maximizes your real estate returns if you're a real estate investor, that is. But ultimately, when you eliminate your debt so quickly, it reduces stress. And stress affects our health, it affects our relationships. I mean, there's so much that reducing stress could just have such a positive impact on people. And it makes me more attractive to my wife.
Mm-hmm. Your hair doesn't look always so frazzled when your finances are better.
Yes, you know, you keep pointing out the gray. It's not gray. I keep trying to tell you it's bleach blonde.
Ah, bleach blonde. It's the summer swimming.
Yeah. All the swimming I've been doing this summer, yes. So another question we get from folks is, well, why doesn't everyone do this? How come I haven't heard of this? Well, it's because they don't know about it. Many banks discourage it. Mainstream media doesn't understand it. Financial advisors have never heard of it. Dave Ramsey's doesn't teach it. Susie Orman didn't write about it. Mom and dad didn't do it. Your broke cousin said not to. Bottom line is they fear it. They fear it because they don't understand it. So what does it take to do credit banking? Right? It's a mindset. It's really what it comes down to. We can teach you the ins and outs, and we will teach you the ins and outs of how to implement this strategy, but it comes down to a mindset. You see, an employee mindset is where you work at a W-2 job or you're 1099, right? And you use your cash as currency. Every month, you have a certain amount of cash that comes in, and then it goes out to all your different expenses. Right, that creates a cash scarcity mentality because there's only so much money, and I'm running out of money before I run out at the end of the month, and so you get worried. What are we going to do? Well, listen, a credit banking mindset would use an abundance mentality. What is that? Well, see, wealthy folks, they use leverage as their currency, and they use cash to accelerate and grow their wealth, creating an abundance mentality. So when you can leverage other people's money, also known as opium, not opium like the drug, but OPM.
Yes. That's the good stuff.
Other people's money. When you can use other people's money to pay your bills and then use your cash to pay the rent money for that, right? So you're renting somebody else's money at a small amount, right? And they pay all your bills. What that does is it leaves you with more liquidity. And when you have the ability to have cash on hand to be able to say, you know what, When your child says, can we go to this place? Can we go there? You say, yeah, let's go. Instead of saying, no, we can't afford that, son, or we can't afford that, daughter. You know, the abundance mindset is, yes, we can actually do this because we have set our finances up the right way. So what is it technically that you need to get started with credit banking? You need three things. There are three ingredients that make up the credit banking cookie, because I like cookies.
Ooh, what are those delicious three ingredients?
First of all, you need debt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people don't have any problem finding the first ingredient.
No, we always find that that's really easy to get.
Yes, it's just readily available. Everybody seems to have debt. Now, the second ingredient, cash flow.
Now we're getting a little bit trickier.
Yeah, and this is really what
enough cash flow.
This is the focus of tonight, really. The primary focus tonight is to show you how to get ingredient number 2, which is how to get cash flow, right? Because with positive monthly cash flow, this is going to be the fuel.
That's the key. We said cash flow. It's easy to get cash flow. It's just not, it's the positive cash flow. Could have negative cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the last thing we need is a line of credit. Now, when you have debt, positive monthly cash flow, and a line of credit, some people use a credit card, but when you have these three together and you use them the right way, you can utilize the credit banking strategy and eliminate your debt in 1/3 the time. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this is credit banking, the search for the lost American dream. So we have to go back and, you know, we defined what credit banking was, but we haven't defined what the American dream is or what that lost American dream is. What is the lost American dream to you, Mr. Fleming?
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom. What is that? What does that mean?
Well, that means not having the burdens of financial stress. Well, actually, a good buddy of mine, he says, it's really having that ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever want, and the means to do so.
Yes. So that financial freedom is going to be a different number, so to speak,
right,
for each person.
Each person is different. Some say 1,000, some say 10 million.
Mm-hmm. Now, this presentation, as it's being brought to you, was made in the theme of those Indiana Jones movies. If you've ever watched them, it's really great. He's this archaeologist always searching for lost treasures, right? And financial freedom is very much like that. It seems like you've got to go through the maze and then get around the booby traps and then jump over the pitfalls, right? And watch out for the snakes and the spiders and right. But eventually, somewhere at the end, we're like, if we could just get financial freedom. I mean, some people think financial freedom is just eliminating all your debts. If you could just have all your debts eliminated, then they would be financially free. And in one respect, that is true. You would be free from debt. But also another component to financial freedom is if you get out of debt, if you go all the way from being in debt to getting out of debt, but you have no plan to stay out of debt, where are you going to go?
You're going to go right back in.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that. To achieve financial freedom, we've got to have a financial freedom goal. Now, financial freedom happens when your passive income equals your monthly expenses. So we still need income coming in, but we need passive income. Ray, would you help enlighten our folks who don't know what passive income is?
Passive income is really coming from assets, things that you have put into motion that make you money.
Mm-hmm.
So passive income could simply be an investment of some sort. It could be some type of business that you would set up.
Savings, investments, contributions, dividends. But what's your form of passive income?
So real estate, rental properties, business systems, those are really our idea of what passive income is.
Absolutely. So financial freedom happens when your passive income equals your monthly expenses. So let's take a look at that. Very simple formula. You take your monthly expenses and you subtract your passive income, and that'll equal your financial freedom goal. So let's throw some numbers up on the screen. So if you had $3,000 a month and monthly expenses. And let's say right now you don't have any passive income. So you have zero. So then your financial freedom goal would be $3,000. If you had $3,000 a month coming in every month, then you wouldn't have to go to your job unless you love going to your job. Now, this all should seem kind of simple, but here's why I go over this. A lot of people, they want to be financially free. They want to get out of debt. They want to have this freedom. But if we don't actually quantify what it is that we're searching for, we will never find it. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They set out, well, I just want to be wealthy, or I just want to make a lot of money, or until we know exactly what our goals are. Oh, well, I just want to get out of debt. Well, what does that mean to get out of debt? Because if you got all out of debt, but you didn't have any passive monthly income, you're going to go right back into debt.
Yeah.
So really, the goal is to get passive monthly income, right? But how much passive monthly income? Well, we know that we need the amount of passive monthly income needs to meet our monthly expenses. So let's quantify this a little bit more. How much money will you need to invest to create the passive income needed to reach your financial freedom goal? Well, again, we're going to take what should seem obvious, but turn it into a math equation. Our financial freedom goal, multiply that by 12, and that'll cover us for a year. But we must divide that amount by our rate of return. So a rate of return. Why don't you enlighten our folks what a rate of return is? Because we got a lot of new people here.
No, it's very, very true. So basically, the rate of return is one way of looking at it. How much capital or how much money you've put into something, and that return on an annual basis. This could be looked at monthly. Some things are a little bit harder to calculate the rate of return or the return on investment, but usually the standard procedure is looking at how much money you put in, the percentage that you're making on that investment.
So if I lent you $10,000 and then over for a year, and over a year you paid me back in installments, but I made back $11,000.
Right.
What was my rate of return?
Your ultimate rate of return is 10% or $1,000.
Right. So I took money that I had, right, and I invested it in Ray, and then Ray used my money to do whatever he does with his properties, because that's why we call him the property guy. And then he brings me back my money with some friends.
Right.
So if you're out there trying to figure out your financial freedom goal, multiply that by 12, divide it by your rate of return. Now, in the example I gave you, that was 10%, but what if I want 20%? What if I'm like, I want more money for my money?
Well, it's definitely achievable. That is going to come through knowledge, and it's also going to take a little bit more work to achieve something, and also a little bit higher risk.
That's true. That's true. So there are a lot of investments that are out there.
Right.
Is it easy to find the 1, 2, 3% ROI investments?
Oh, all day, every day.
It starts getting a little bit harder once you get over, say, 5%. And then you start seeing it narrow down. Once you get over 10%, would you say the field begins to narrow even more?
It shrinks drastically, yes.
So the only way to make those type of return on investments are to make riskier investments.
Well, we say riskier, but you simply are going to have to go where average folks are not unable to go. So in order to go and get 20, 40, 100% return on investment, then you're going to have to come with some specialized knowledge on how to actually do that.
Okay. So, but let's say I want to get 10% return on investment, and you're a real estate investor. Would real estate investors right now use my money and pay me 10% for that?
On an annual basis? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, not at all.
And what would secure my money? Well, how would I have any security in my investment?
Well, you'd secure it to the asset. So let's say this is a house. You'd secure it to the house.
So how does that work? I give you $10,000,
and I give you you get to basically have a a lien against the property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So similar, same way that the bank would put a lien against the property.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if someone were to default
Mm-hmm.
and not pay you, you would be able to start the foreclosure process.
So if you didn't pay me my 10%, I foreclose,
right.
and I either get my money from you or I get the property.
Right. And that's why we really love real estate, is because if you think about it, you could come to the bank and ask for money to invest in Amazon stock. They're going to laugh at you. But a bank will go into the worst looking property on the street with you every day of the week. So think about that. They won't go into you with the best business to buy their stock, but they'll invest with you on the ugliest property.
That's true. All right, so let's look at a math formula. If we take $3,000 that was our financial freedom goal, and we multiply that by 12, we're going to get $36,000 a year. If we divide that by a 10% return, that means we need $360,000. Now, think about that for a moment. I mean, some people are like, "Oh, that's a lot of money," but at the same time, that's not a lot of money. We look at different actuary tables, and we look at for people, how much money they can make over a certain amount of time, and how much money you need in retirement, and how long people are going to live, and how productive they are. I mean, we look at all of these kind of numbers. And if somebody wanted $3,000 a month for every month for 20 years, they would need to have over $1 million set aside in an interest-bearing account.
That's right.
And it would be gone after 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Here, we can get that same result, but only need $360,000.
That's a very good point.
And if that was let's say I put that $360,000 into one of your rental properties, and every month you're in charge of putting tenants in there, regardless if you have a tenant or not, you're paying me my 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could use, if I had $360,000 invested in one of your rental properties, you would be paying me $3,000, right, every month.
I would do that all day, every day, because I could easily go and make $3,000 a month with 360.
Right. Well, you wouldn't buy a property for $360,000. You'd leverage that into probably $1 million property is what I would imagine, that would have like 8 to 12 units.
Right.
And you'd be collecting rent off of all of them, and it would be really easy for you to make the the payment to me and make your whatever your payment is on the loan that you got.
Absolutely.
So see, and so in that example, your loan would probably be in first position, and then my loan to you that gave you the down payment to get into that would be in second position. So your loan might be at 4%, but because my loan's in second position, I can charge you a higher interest rate.
Absolutely.
Because I have a little bit more risk on my side. See, guys, I'm just trying to show you, because some people want to know how do I get financially free? Somebody is thinking, I got to save millions of dollars in my 401k to be able to retire, when actually, what if we could just get to $360,000 and put that money to work at 10% interest? If my expenses were only $3,000 a month, then that's all that I need to become financially free. And so once people start looking and quantifying what it is they're actually shooting for, it makes it so much easier, because you hear financial experts and advisors say, oh, you need to have this much money. Oh, prepare for inflation, and you need all these things. Is your expenses change? Let's say your expenses go up by $1,000. So it goes up to $4,000. Well, then I redo my numbers and I come up with the fact that I'm going to need to invest probably $480,000, right, at 10%, or I change my interest rate, leave the same amount of money, but now I need to work with maybe a 12 or 15% return on investment. So, folks, I just want this. I want you guys to keep in mind that while we are working with credit banking to eliminate debt, there's got to be a plan. There's got to be a goal. We don't want to just eliminate our debt without any plan, because then we're just going to go right back in debt. But with this, when we calculate our financial freedom goal, we know what it is that we're working towards, and we can use credit banking as a strategy to not only eliminate our debt, but what if credit banking could be used as a strategy to help us get that $360,000, let's say in a home equity line of credit, right? So this is how we comprehensively look at a strategy, not only to get out of debt, but to create and provide for our financial freedom moving forward. All right. So I have to ask, what keeps us from financial freedom? Now that we know that we're looking for it, how come we don't have it?
Out of control debt. We're running.
Remember, like, so we're talking about, this theme of Indiana Jones. He's going to school, he's educated, he's studied, and even doing everything right, like go to school, get good grades, get a job, right? To get the house, to get the car, to get the wife and the kids. And before you know it, you're $500,000 in debt, and your job is not paying you enough money to even service that debt. That's what we're looking at here. So you can do everything right, like in the movie Indiana Jones. He did everything right. He got through every single booby trap. And still, even though you do everything right, that's what it feels like in life. I did everything right. I went to school. I got the good grades. I got the job. I did everything right, and yet I'm saddled with so much debt. And my creditors, they're coming after me like these natives that are chasing after Indiana Jones. And that's what it can feel like. And so some people feel like, where did I go wrong? At what point did I lose control? Because I thought I was doing everything they taught me to do.
It's not your fault. The system was rigged against you from the beginning.
It was, absolutely. Absolutely. So where is that lost American dream? Where is that financial freedom? How can we find that? Well, we're going to need a map. This map was lost a long time ago. It's because, see, folks, we just don't know about how to budget anymore. I mean, budget is a bad word. I mean, I keep saying budget, and there are people out there going, "Ooh," right? The people are violently reacting to that word. Lines versus loans. People don't understand the math behind the actual borrowing of money. And then the credit banking strategy. Well, folks, we're going to have to put all these pieces together and understand how they work. But, if you're here like, oh, well, tell me how credit banking works. Well, I want to, but until you understand budgeting and until you understand the math between the various bank products that are out there, then credit banking is going to create more confusion and questions for you. And so that's why we break it down into pieces. So this week, we're really talking about budget with our goal to create positive monthly cash flow. So the numbers that we're going to take come from the census, right? We're going to look at the average 2-income American family, right? They have a net income, a net monthly income of $5,000. And when they get that money, they live in that cash basis mentality. They put it all into the bank, right? And while it sits in the bank, then they've got to every month divvy it out for all the various expenses that they have. And so all of these are just coming off of averages, right? The average 2-income American family brings in, according to the last census, $5,000 a month net after taxes have been paid. So as we've got to duck for those arrows when they come by, right? So the first thing that everybody budgets for is their mortgage payment. Some people have rent because they don't have a loan, but the average 2-income American family, you have two incomes, a 2-income household, they are into a mortgage, right? And so the average debt that they're carrying is $200,000, and that average is at 6%. But interest rates from the last census have been at record lows. I bet you that interest rate is probably more around 4%.
Yeah.
When the next census comes out, all these numbers will be updated. So, but what's the next thing that we have to budget for? Well, if we have a 2-income American family, we have 2 jobs, and we have to get to both of these jobs. And a lot of times we have 2 automobiles. And so the average automobile payment is $300 a month per car. So 2 cars means $600, and then the total debt that they're carrying is $26,000 total on their auto debt. Now the next thing, and again, keep in mind these are averages. If these numbers don't match your numbers, don't worry about it. Everybody's numbers are going to be different. The point is that you understand that even though everybody's budget is different, there are still the principles that we go over here are still applicable regardless of what your actual numbers are. Okay, so now we've got credit card payments. So this is a different, so before we were talking about a home loan or a mortgage, and we were talking about an auto loan or auto vehicle financing. Those will come in loans. Now we're talking about lines of credit, credit lines. That can be credit cards or a line of credit, personal line of credit, secured line of credit, a home equity line of credit, a second mortgage, right? Or a first position home equity line of credit. Also, your overdraft accounts a lot of times are calculated in the lines of credit. So all of these various lines of credit, the average two-income American family has some mixture of these lines of credit, credit cards or lines of credit. And so they have a $15,000 limit. I would say that that limit is actually probably higher today than where it was when these numbers were pulled. But according to this information, the average two-income American family, while they have a $15,000 limit, they're carrying a $12,000 balance. And this is typically on their credit cards or their lines of credit. And then the average interest rate on these lines of credit is about 21% interest. So that's that's pretty sobering. I would probably say that the lines of credit have probably gone up to 18 to 20,000, but people are probably somewhere between $14,000 to $15,000 in debt on those lines of credit.
Easily, yeah.
So again, I don't know specifically until all the the Bureau of Labor and Statistics gets their numbers from the census, and so you can definitely check all these numbers out for yourself. But after budgeting for your mortgage payment, your auto payment, your credit card payments, now we've got a budget for your lifestyle. We're talking about your food bill, your electric bill, your water bill, gas, right? Internet, phone. Do you go out to eat? Do you get lattes, right? I mean, what is your lifestyle? Now, any number can really be put in here that fits the family that we're talking about. So in this example, this is a two-income American family. There's no kids. So their budget is for all of this is $1,200. But for you might be a single parent with 4 kids. You could be you have a two-income family. You might have 2-3 kids, and you might also have your parents living with you. So I mean, there's a lot of different configurations, but based off of how many people are actually in the home really affects what that budget is going to be. So we've got to account for that. And then the last thing is, once you've budgeted for all your monthly expenses and all your bills, then it's time to come up with a savings plan. So the average two-income American family is putting away $1,400 every month into savings. And at first, when I say that, most people go, wait a minute, no, they're not. That doesn't sound right. I keep hearing on the news all the time that people aren't putting enough money into savings. Well, folks, this number represents people who put money into 401ks or IRAs or some kind of pension or some kind of annuity, something like that. So that is calculated into this budget as long-term savings. Even though it's not technically savings, it's actually investment.
Right.
The way that the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they just lumped all that into savings. So really, the vast majority of this pie wedge slice is money that people are putting away into their retirement accounts. Two-income families, 2 jobs might each have a 401k. And if they contribute, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 to 10%, and then the company matches. Sometimes they match at 25%, 50%, 100% till you're fully invested, right? So there's a lot of different variables that go into that.
About $350 a week for a married couple.
So what happens though is there also is people that actually do put money into savings accounts, and you might know how that works because you might have seen this. You have some money comes in, you got a little surplus. Let's put that $300 over there in the savings account, and then whoops, I didn't realize that little Johnny over here was going to need to get a new pair of shoes, and Sally needs a new dress, and there's this the school is doing this fundraiser. Well, let's pull that 300 right back out of savings and put it right back into the checking account. So there is money put into savings accounts all the time. It's just not left in there very long. People save up for a very short period of time. Hey, let's save up a month or two before Christmas so we have enough to do Christmas or something like that. So this is the average two-income American family. And when you look at it, you have $5,000 a month income coming in, and you have $5,000 going out. So this means that people are living paycheck to paycheck. And that's pretty hard. But is this your budget? Is this what it looks like for you? I mean, how would you grade that? Well, if that was an investment, Ray, I found this property and it brings in $5,000 a month, but the monthly maintenance on it is $5,000. You want it?
Definitely not as a, not something I want to hold on to.
Without cash flow, it makes it very difficult for you to pull the trigger.
It does. 1 month out of work or 1 month without cash flow, and we're in a rough situation.
Absolutely. So,
which unfortunately we've seen.
I mean, we go to school to get good grades, right? But I mean, what does it get us? What did school teach us, if anything, right? It was to prepare us to be contributing members of society.
Right. I mean, you learn how to play well with others. You learn how to complete projects and tasks and spell and write and all that good stuff. It doesn't, the thing it doesn't have is how to actually create wealth.
No.
It does actually a very, very good job. It's designed to teach you how to become an employee.
Yes.
That's really what it is. It's designed that way to make you a very effective worker. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for that's the max that it actually covers. So it does actually too good of a job in keeping you an employee forever.
That's true. In fact,
it's too good.
If I was looking at this and this was the grade of my life, that this was my report card, I would feel like I got an F.
Your financial
financial report card, I would say, because I want my kids to get good grades. And so, I mean, if I went to school and I did all that, I would want to show that this actually meant something. It led to something. I actually gained something valuable. But if all I can show my kid is that go to school to get good grades so that you can live paycheck to paycheck, I'm not really setting a good example, am I?
No, and you just brought something up. So I wasn't necessarily a straight A student, and I was somewhat ashamed of my grades, and so I didn't necessarily want to talk about my grades. And I thought the ones that had the A's, they were just kind of being a show off. I think that's very similar to this. Is that might be why it's kind of something that we're ashamed of, or even bringing up in conversation, is personal finances.
Which is why people don't like talking about the budget.
Right. Interesting.
So here's a budget, right? This was just pulled off of Excel. But if you're trying to keep a budget, you're trying to look at what your income and expenses are, and you're looking at all of these things. I actually, if I actually stop sharing that for just a moment, and if I go to, oh, come on. Well, why can't I see it here? Why doesn't anything work the way you want it to work, right? Okay, hold on. So I've got this form. Wait a minute, I want right here. This is what I want. So I should be able to just share it. Right? There we go.
There we go.
Okay, here we go. So I'm sharing this screen with you.
All right, that looks good.
So now you can see this is what a budget looks like. This is what keeping budget. So if we take the numbers that we saw in this budget, this is what it looks like. So we've got $5,000 wages in, we've got the mortgage payment, but look, there's a lot more to calculate here. What about HOA fees, taxes, insurance, right? That's not reflected in that. So, we got a budget for that. Daily living, groceries, cleaning products, gas, fuel, entertainment, your Netflix, right? Your subscriptions, Do you go to a gym? Do you have a health club? What about life insurance? Right? You've got to be able to. So a lot of people, they don't even know how to budget because they don't actually map out their expenses. Right? If you go on a vacation, have you what are the accommodations? Everything we pay for in recreation. If our kids are in sports? What did that cost for the
Right.
subscription and the uniform? Right? People don't really have magazines and newspapers anymore. I actually still get the newspaper.
I have a couple of magazines that are
But-
probably gonna like pop up on my card sometime in the next year.
but people do have a lot of like Pandora, Spotify, and then people give to charity, or people tithe, or they give to their church. And then what do you spend on haircuts? Right? Do you buy books, like audiobooks?
Mm-hmm.
Right? People.
I just canceled that subscription actually. It was
Really?
a lot. It was like $16 a month. My Audible.
Man, I love Audible,
I know.
but I drive more than you do, so I get more out of mine, I think, than you do. But with that being said, I wanted to show you guys an example of what a budget looks like, because I mean, if this is the first time you've ever seen something like that, then you might be like, I just don't know. I don't know how to budget. Well, now you know. Now you know what you need to do. So let me pull this back up here. Okay, we're back to the presentation again. Perfect. Hey, I'm almost like a pro, Ray.
You bring up a good point though, because anything you don't pay attention to, let's say it's it's the summertime. If you don't water your plants are going to die. If you don't examine your personal finances, or just hope that by looking at them once a month they're going to be able to blossom and bloom, then unfortunately they're going to wither and die.
And you can't really budget by just watching the income and out, the inflow and out, the outgo of your bank statement, right?
Right.
Because that's sort of like, you're not in control. You're just sort of watching what's happening. And so you definitely got to get ahead of this. So how do you create cash flow? Well, you should increase your income. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
But would you also agree that you could also decrease your expenses?
Yes, absolutely. Raul says you could create it by paying off the credit card using money from your. Yes, of course. We can totally do that.
You didn't finish what you said. You could totally pay off.
Oh, create cash flow by paying off the credit card using money from the savings.
Yes, absolutely.
So that would be decreasing your expenses right there. Yeah.
Right. So the way we create cash flow is by increasing income, decreasing expenses, or both. So let's look at what are ways that we can increase income? Because people say, well, you say increase income, but that's easy to say, but how do you actually do it? Well, there's a lot of ideas. What if you changed your tax deductions on your W-4?
Ooh, that's always a good one.
Would that increase?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of times we have such few deductions that a lot of taxes are taken out. And some people do that on purpose because they don't ever want to pay taxes, right? So you overpay your taxes and you live on less money. Sometimes by changing your W-4, you might put an extra, $300 to $600 a month in your pocket. I mean, it's your money. So, I mean, when you give it to the government like that, it's not like they pay you any interest on it, do they?
Nope, not at all.
So you might as well use it. What else could we do? Well, you could decrease your 401k, your IRA contributions, right? And people are putting sometimes up to 10% of their paycheck into there. But I mean, what are you getting?
But that's my retirement.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a lot of strong thoughts and opinions on that. Some people have argued with me, well, you don't understand, and my employer matches, my contribution. And it just comes down to you're tripping over dollars to try and pick up pennies.
Well, right. I mean, you have to go back to the math. Yes, I understand that you enjoy that. It's good. But if you're bleeding somewhere else, imagine that you're in a war. This is going to be a little bit gory, but you lost your leg, but you also got shot in the arm. So if you're more worried about just trying to bandage up this, but you're missing a leg, then I mean you got to pay attention to where your leg is missing first.
Right.
And that's really where the mortgages come into play, is because that's usually you're bleeding heavily bleeding.
I guess I would just say this. I mean, because we spend a lot of time going into this, and maybe we will go into this more in a future training, but nobody cares more about your financial future, your retirement, than you do, right? So sending your money off to somebody else to invest that money for you is not a great strategy. You need to become educated on what it is that you want to invest in, right? If you want to invest in stocks, then become a day trader and stop putting your money away to somebody else to invest the money yourself. You will make better choices because you care more about your money, right? And then someone say, well, I don't have the time to do that. Well, then learn to get into investments that you do understand, that are passive investments that you can put money into and set it and forget it. But when you look at the volatility of the stock market, it's up and down, and people say, well, yeah, but it typically gains over time. But a lot of people are losing. And if you're trying to get that big, huge old nest egg that'll pay you money, a lot of people are not where they want to be. They're not on track to reach their financial goals, because really that 401k was never designed to actually get you there. That's really the truth. And so folks, you can do a better job. Now, some people think about this. Well, how can I increase my income? I could work overtime. I could get a second job. The cost is very high, though, because you give up your time. You're giving up time. But some people see this as a great way to pick up a few more dollars in the short term. A short-term loss for a long-term gain. I don't know. What about this? Could you sell an asset to pay off a liability?
Oh, of course. Yes.
So that kind of fits in both categories, though. You could put that into the decreasing expenses or the increase in your income. All right. So in this case, you have an asset that maybe is not making as much money as it could for you right now, but if you sold it, it could get you a lot of money to pay off a liability that's costing you way more than what you're gaining on the gain side. So these are things that people don't always think about. But what about starting a business, creating multiple streams of income? What kind of businesses are out there that people could start, Ray? Because people would be like,
I mean, I think
what kind of business would I
it
start?
comes down to, now the point is, what can't you start? I mean, there's so many opportunities out there that nowadays, because of the power of the internet, power of everything, anything that you are interested in could become a business.
That's true.
Literally anything.
But what's the fastest way to go from start to money? What kind of business?
I would say the fastest would be some type of referral business.
Okay. And so
that, I mean, you could get paid instantly. And it's interesting that so many people already partake in referral businesses or a referral program of some sort without even realizing it. All you have to do is call it a business, and it's a business.
That's true.
I know there's a lot of people that, hey, you get one of those, tell a friend to open up a checking account, you get an extra 200, or you both get $200. Yeah, you'll do that. That's a referral right there. Referral business.
There you go. Well, what about decreasing our expenses? What if we looked at all the automated payments that we had for any duplications?
That alone, I mean, even things that you canceled, they may double charge you or keep charging you. That happens all the time. Being charged twice for the same thing, that happens a lot.
When we work with people, I mean, at a minimum, we usually find that there's a way to free up about $100 right there.
Easily.
Right. So some people are like, oh man, I'm just living paycheck to paycheck. I'm really stressed out. And we look at all these automated things that are hitting your account.
I know. Every time we do it, they're like, oh, no, wait, what? I canceled that. Oh, you know what? The number one thing that I see people getting dinged with recently is that little add-ons for Amazon or something like that. You know, here's a free trial. it's all built around that you're going to forget about that.
Mhm.
7-day HBO free trial or something like that. Oh, I'll cancel it within 7 days, and then you forget to cancel
And
it.
they make it also now so that your payments are going to be like $5, $6, $7, $8. You
Mhm.
know, so it's very easy for those to, if you're not really monitoring your budget, for one of those things to go
Or they
through.
get you in free, without anything, and then eventually it will start charging. So that
Mhm.
happens a lot with like apps for your
Mhm.
phone. Then they'll start charging
That's
you a
right.
small amount each month. And then, I mean, I got one of those yesterday. It says, hey, you just authorized $2.99. I'm like, it's small enough that I'm okay with that because it's an app that I use. And then it's like,
So are free trials actually free?
that's a great question.
All right, let's take a look at this. What about
Yeah, Raul.
look
Free
for better
trials.
payments or get better rates with creditors?
Wait, yeah.
So here's what that means. If someone's like, well, what does that mean? Look, if you are with your insurance company, your auto insurance company, and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to go with the lizard over there.
Bye.
They're like, whoa, wait. Before you go, what if we, and then all of a sudden you start negotiating with them. You're like, oh, okay. Sometimes people will be like, well, what if we can change the rate, change the interest rate, change the term, right? And so there's so many different ways that, if you look at, I mean, insurance does that all the time, but what about your cable, your cell
Cable,
phone?
internet, everything.
Right. Anytime you want to leave one provider to go to a competitor, they have a whole department
Yeah,
for
retention.
retention that will, I mean, and they might not offer you anything long term. What if they just give you 1 month free? Well, what if you're just trying to free up 1 month worth of cash flow, and that was one bill, and then you go over here to another bill, try that frees up, I mean, when we look at some of these bills, a cable bill, a cell phone bill, that could be $100, $200 that you freed up. So a lot of these are really,
Which is, if you've worked in customer service on the phones, then you totally understand this. But if you haven't, a little insight to this, you got to be polite. You get a lot more. You catch more bees with honey, right? That's where it goes down to. So just asking kindly. My favorite thing to get basically discounts across the board. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it with you as the magical word. Thank you for helping me with this before they even start. That's what I say. I say, hey, I really love your service, and I hate to go, and so I'm just so grateful that you're helping me get a discount.
I've also heard you pair with that statement. You'll say, "Oh, I'm so glad you're helping me because the last person was not helpful at all."
Yeah.
And when you say that, those little words make that person try a little bit harder. I really like that. You're like, you're beast.
Thank
What
you.
about refinancing inefficient debt?
Ooh.
So sometimes people are like, oh, refi a home mortgage. Not necessarily. Refinancing inefficient debts, if you look at a lot of debts that we have, sometimes what's inefficient about it is because it needs a large amount of money needs to be paid over a small period of time. So if we can extend the term, or we can lower the interest rate, or both, then we can still pay somebody the same amount of money. In some cases, I've actually refinanced where we're going to end up paying the person more money over a longer period of time, but I'm going to decrease my monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
So again, these would be for a lot of like your personal loans, different types of anything that has a term that you're making payments on. If you can get to the point where you can refinance or negotiate. And then there's also negotiate forbearance and deferment on loans. This works a lot with student loans. So sometimes you might be paying on a loan, and even though those payments are sometimes, at least at the start, pretty small, they do seem to grow over time, and it seems like the balance never goes down. But when you each of those different loan programs has a department that you can call and talk to about your needs, that you have financial hardships, and so they will negotiate with you forbearance and deferment.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you can put off a payment, or In some cases, you can have part of the loan forgiven. Right? It just depends. But these are things that people don't think about. And then what about starting a business? That was the last thing on the previous slide, to increase income. But why would you start a business to cut down on expenses? Would it be because of maybe write-offs?
Absolutely. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday. Or we both were, actually. They were talking about, they're in this tricky situation where they have a lot of medical needs, and they were injured in the line of duty, really, serving our country. And so the need for how much medical care, but then they also have this desire to build something, a legacy for their family. And if they increase their income, then they could lose this. And there's that in between point where, hey, I wouldn't be able to survive without those benefits until I had a lot of money. And so write-offs come into play, because when you start a business, you can actually reduce your W-2 employee income, your spouse's income.
Now, I've seen your rental properties. On paper, you look like you're losing money every month.
Rental properties lose money on paper. They do. But they are growing and actually making money. That's what's so beautiful about them. You bring up a great point, because we talked about that last week on the real estate case study, looking at, that's a way, rental properties, you can create 100% return on your investment.
Absolutely. Over time. So folks, these are just a few of the suggestions that we've put together on how to increase and decrease your expenses. But how does credit banking actually work? Well, you take your income and you put the fuel into your vehicle, into your line of credit. But when you do that, when you overpay your credit cards, you free up that $600, right? So before, you didn't have any cash flow, but when you put all of your income onto your line of credit, bam, you just instantly created $600 of cash flow.
No longer budgeting for that payment.
And if we stop contributing to the 401ks, and we're going to take that money and invest it in ourselves, because I guarantee you that once you become educated and you know what you're doing, you're going to make more money and be for yourself than anybody else is. So you stop contributing that money. Now, some people are like, but I still have a lot of money in there. Yeah, we're not going to get rid of any 401k or IRAs. We're not telling you to cash out of those, because there's a whole nother strategy called self-directed IRAs and self-directed 401ks. And so we're going to definitely show you how you can turn those accounts and begin to control what they invest in. And so now you haven't got an extra job. You didn't work overtime. But because we changed how our money moves, and we're now credit banking, we're banking through our credit cards, we end up freeing, in this example, $2,000 of cash flow. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
So the last thing I want to talk to you before we get into before we dive into our case study is debt to income. Right now, when we're talking about credit, debt to income, it really doesn't have any bearing on credit, because credit really looks at how likely are you to default on any type of loan in the next 90 days. Right? If any institution lends you money, your credit tells what your credit score, what all that tells them is how likely are you to default in the next 90 days. So debt to income tells somebody what percentage of your income is allocated to servicing your debt. So when you're qualifying for a loan, right, they look at your credit score, right? They look at your debt to income ratio. They spend a lot of time looking at your income, and they want to verify that with tax returns and bank statements. They also want to really dive into your credit score and look at your payment history and see how many derogatories, what kind of derogatories that you have. They want to look at your inquiries and how many have you had over the last 6 months, right? So they're diving in and they're really taking a look at all of this. But let's go over debt to income, because some people don't understand how all of these play together. So debt to income is critical for qualifying for a loan. So lender underwriting guidelines to borrow $200,000. So let's say you're like Ray and you had this great idea. I want to get a rental property. Great. So you need to have a credit score greater than 700. You need to have a utilization under 30%, and your debt to income ratio needs to be under 45% for the average lender. Okay. And so if you meet those criteria, then the bank would lend you $200,000, right? And then you're thinking to yourself, great, I'm going to get this rental property. It's going to bring in all this money. It's going to supplement my income. I'm going to be able to retire early, all these wonderful things. So let's go over this, the budget that, we were talking about earlier. When you take, this is actually the budget that we were looking at the average 2-income American family, because they are getting paid $6,600 a month gross, but after taxes come out, they're getting their net 500, and all their expenses are laid out right there. So this is that same budget that we just covered, and we're trying to take that person, that 2-income American family, and we're trying to qualify for a rental property so we can bring in some extra income, so we can achieve that financial freedom goal, right? Well, let's look and see how the lender calculates their DTI. Well, DTI for the lender is your fixed expenses divided by your gross income. So your fixed expenses are going to be the expenses that don't change. So does your food bill change, Ray? From month to month?
A little bit.
What about your power bill? Is it exactly the same every month?
No, it changes a little bit.
Water bill?
A little bit.
Okay, so your fixed expenses, what about your mortgage payment?
That doesn't change.
Your auto payment?
That doesn't change.
Student loans?
Doesn't change.
None of those change. So they're taking your fixed expenses, basically what you're spending on all the loans that you have, and they're dividing that by your gross income. And so when you do it that way, I've totaled the numbers up for you. The DTI is calculated at 24%. So the bank, if you had a 700 credit score, right? If your utilization was at 30%, and based off of what we're looking at here, we see, wow, you're based off of this debt to income. Congratulations, Ray. You just qualified for $200,000 loan.
That sounds good.
But I have to ask you, is that your real DTI? I mean, do we live off of our gross income?
Usually not.
And our fixed expenses are only expenses?
Nope.
So it's interesting that the bank would do that. So let's talk about what's called your living DTI, right? Which would be your total expenses divided by your net income. And total expenses are when you take those fixed expenses plus all of the rest of your expenses. And then your gross income minus your income taxes that you pay would then be your net income. So if we took our total expenses and we divided it by our net income, our DTI, once we calculate that, it's now at 68%. Now, if the bank used that number, would you have qualified?
Nope.
But the bank didn't use that number, did they?
They did not.
Isn't that interesting? I wonder why.
You know, I have a lot of conspiracy theories on exactly why, but.
Well, hey, I'm not done. I want to show you one more thing. This is just to qualify for the loan. We haven't even factored in, well, there's going to be a loan payment.
Ooh, yes.
Now you're thinking to yourself, well, this is going to be rental income and somebody else is going to make that payment.
Right.
But actually, you've got to be able to consider 80% occupancy rate, meaning only 80% of the year would your house be occupied on average. So 20% of the time you'll be flipping it and changing out carpet and repainting to put in new tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that means you've got to be able to cover the rent for a couple of months.
That's right.
So let's throw in, so there's going to be an extra $1,200 a month payment. And when we factor that into our total expenses and then divide by our net income, now your DTI is 96%. Is there really a whole lot of room for margin for error?
Nope.
Mm-mm. So here's why I bring this up. Are there a lot of people who have gotten into trouble with their finances?
Oh, yes.
I mean, this is an example using a rental property, but does this happen with people's just home that they actually live in?
Uh-huh.
Now, how did people get into this mess? Because look at what the lender said. The lender said your DTI was 24%, and so you qualify for the loan. if you will go to the lender and you trust them, right? Because they wouldn't make a decision that was not in your best interest.
Or would they?
Or would they? The lender makes money by actually qualifying you for loans. If they actually looked at, I mean, if they actually calculated their loans based off of a living DTI, then nobody would qualify for a loan.
That's true.
Right? So they have to adjust their model so that they can help you qualify and get into a loan. But you need to be your own financial advisor, and you need to look and to really calculate whether or not you can afford the loan. Because if your DTI is going to go over 45%, that means all that money is spoken for of. If you're at 96 in this example, 96 DTI, that means you are living paycheck to paycheck. That means you're pretty much every dollar that comes in is already accounted for, meaning you earn a paycheck, but it's already spent before you actually cash the check.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but how did we get into this situation where we're over leveraged? And how did that happen? It happened because we thought that the bank was looking out for us, right? They calculated our DTI. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that go into it, but I'm just saying one of the reasons are if we go and we try to see if we qualify for a loan, and all of a sudden, yeah, you qualify for a loan. We're like, yes, we feel empowered. I'm doing something right.
Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to, but
right.
All right, let's do this.
But you need to be your own financial expert. That's what the purpose of this little training is for you, is because lenders are out there trying to get you qualified into loans because they need to make money, and it's in their best interest to qualify you for a loan when maybe it's not in your best interest to actually take the loan. Look at your DTI, understand DTI. And when you understand DTI and your credit score and your utilization and inquiries, when you understand the whole picture of how your finances work, then you can basically start banking on your own terms. You can create your own economy once you know how all these different pieces work. If you use credit banking as a strategy to free up, I mean, what is credit banking as a strategy going to do? It's going to lower your DTI. It's going to increase your credit score. It's going to lower your utilization, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to have so many positive impact on your finances that you will be able to qualify for funding in the future if you should need it. But you'll be able to decide, because now you know how to calculate DTI when you're looking to borrow money in the future, as to whether or not you can actually afford it. All right? Is that awesome, or is that awesome?
That's awesome.
So you need to stay tuned each and every week as we go over and we put the bits and pieces of this map together. We've gone over budget, right? And we talked about lines versus loans. See, budget really helps us get the fuel for our trip. See, we're going through this map and this maze, right? And lines of credit versus loans, we got to figure out what our vehicle is going to be to help us do credit banking. And so when we put the fuel in the vehicle and we're able to navigate, we then learn the strategy of credit banking and how to eliminate our debts. This is what each and every week we are trying to accomplish here on our credit banking masterminds. And so now, next thing, we're going to get into a case study after a word from our sponsor. Ray, you have a quick little couple of slides you wanted to go over real quick. Our case study is going to show you how to eliminate a 30-year mortgage in 9 years. So you want to stay tuned for that.
Well, we just, every week we like to recap on where this fits into everything in the 5 pillars of wealth, because wealth really is a mindset. So during the lunch and learns on Tuesday and Thursday, we talk about business, how to get your business financing completed. And if you haven't gone through the how to build business credit, I recommend you go over to the Wise Guys YouTube channel and take that masterclass. It's a free class for you to learn how businesses get set up and how they work, really. Now, taxes. Since we're not accountants or CPAs, we do talk a little bit about taxes, but mainly what you need to be able to know to make sure you're working with the right professionals.
I think taxes is what you're covering today.
Yeah. And credit banking. Every Tuesday night at 6 p.m., we go over the strategies of how you can learn to leverage the bank against itself.
Now, for those who are tuning in late, we're actually not going to be on this Velocity YouTube channel anymore. If you're subscribed to the
Make sure you're subscribed to the Velocity channel. Hit the bell so you get all the updates from the amazing master Velocity banker, Mr. CJ Wallace. And we're so grateful for everything that CJ has done and helped us. And we love him, absolutely. And then so now he's going to be helping us in transitioning and getting Wise Guys and Ties channel up and running. And so next week we will be over there on the Wise Guys channel.
Now, what happens to the people that are in the actual credit banking mastermind? What do they need to do?
Nothing. Don't worry about that. If you're already in the Zoom and everything like that, you know, of course, go over and you can subscribe to the YouTube channels and you can get all sorts of extra stuff that we put out there when we're not on the regular Zoom scheduled webinars.
You can get all the recordings of everything that we do.
Recordings, access to anything like that. So real estate, that's another powerful wealth creation. And so every Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, we're on Zoom and YouTube talking about the real estate pillar. And very last, education. Of course, the reason we bring all this to you is so you can learn and pick up the information that you need to succeed. Because this, quite frankly, wasn't taught in school. We didn't learn this in school. We learned this from following and understanding these principles from other successful people in these industries and successful entrepreneurs, successful business owners.
So every dollar in the U.S. economy flows through one of these 5 systems?
It does. It does. And if you don't understand these systems, the systems will take advantage of you. This is what we're talking about. If you don't understand it, it's easy to be taken advantage of. So what are we touching base on today? We're touching base on tax planning, tax deduction, converting your expenses, paying less through tax savings. So what is your largest expense? Well, so, you know, business ownership equals tax savings. So it took taxpayers on average 114 days to earn enough to pay the national tax bill for that year. That's pretty crazy. April 24th is the tax freedom day.
Yes, we can finally start keeping.
That is not a widely celebrated holiday.
Have you ever noticed how far the tax day is? April 15th is from voting day on the second Tuesday of November.
Yep.
If they put those 2 days on the same day, like what if you paid taxes in November? Do you think people might vote differently?
Oh, absolutely. So as an employee, you have anywhere from 15 to 20 write-offs. Did you know that being an employee is the most expensive way to actually pay taxes? See, the schooling system was designed to create you to become an employee, and there's a reason they did not teach you about taxes, how to do your own taxes, because they didn't want you to understand that there was a way to pay less. All of us love, you know, finding good discounts and finding good deals. Go out there and create them. The government also takes taxes first, and then you receive your money. It's also difficult to write off items like travel, cars, insurance, cell phones, computers, etc. You know, children expenses, grandchildren expenses, if you don't have a business. But that's the beautiful part is when you actually do have a business, you can take advantage of over 400 write-offs. And did you know that being self-employed is the least expensive way to pay your taxes? Being a business owner is the best way to pay taxes because you actually get to pick and choose. See, a lot of people don't even understand that you get to actually pick how many taxes you want to write off. There's been times, you know, this last year, I didn't even take all my tax deductions because I wanted to increase my fundability. So you can choose to take your taxes all the way to zero, or you can pay some taxes to actually show some income, but it's also finding that sweet little.
Yeah, there's been times where we have spread out the tax deduction over a few years, and some of our expenses we've taken the lump sum right off the bat.
Being a business owner, you receive your money first, and then you claim your expenses, and then you pay your taxes. So you don't have that little gremlin coming into your paycheck and taking the money.
That's right.
So write-offs, items that are used like business travel, cars, insurance, cell phones, computers, everything you can turn into a business deduction. So let's say you're looking at buying a brand new car. So a $50,000, you know, big SUV. Let's say you put that into use in 2020 and you used basically 100% for your business. $40,000 can actually be written off in 2020.
What?
That's pretty awesome.
What? That's crazy.
You will actually find this at dealerships. Coming up towards the end of the year, you will find business owners in there trying to buy vehicles so they can get it in before the end of the year. If you're going to buy a new car, you might as well not pay taxes on all that income.
So that's $40,000 of taxes that I would owe that I wouldn't have to pay.
So a lot of people don't understand this because maybe they have a spouse that makes, $40,000 or whatever. They could, do something like that where you write off.
So if I
Earned
had a business and I was going to end up with a $40,000 tax bill, instead of giving that to the government, I could put that towards an SUV.
Oh, absolutely.
And then then the only thing I'm actually then paying for is $10,000.
Right.
That's awesome.
So you can hire your kids, 3 kids, basically at $12,000, which is right now what you are allowed to pay your children a year. That's $36,000 in write-offs.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's huge. And so, well, children under 18. We'll get into the other details later, but turn your life into a tax deduction, employee versus being a business owner. To find out more, go over to follow to freedom.info and see all the great stuff that we're putting together outside of YouTube and the Zoom calls.
The large community that we're part
Large
of.
community of real estate investors, nationwide network. If you want to get plugged into knowing more about how to be in business, how to be in real estate, go over to follow us to freedom.info to find out more.
And they're going to learn all about all those other different pillars of what, like, we focus a lot on the credit banking strategy. That's only one of 5 strategies to master your finances. That's great. Thank you so much, Ray. Now, at this point, we want to say thank you. We want to say good night and goodbye to the Velocity channel for those watching us there. If you'd like to continue on and watch the case study that's coming up next, we definitely want you to join us for that case study, but that's going to be over on the Wise Guys and Ties YouTube channel. And for those of you that are already here in the Credit Banking Mastermind with us in the Zoom webinar, you don't have to do anything. But for all of those folks on the CJ Wallace YouTube channel, we want to thank CJ Wallace. We want to thank you for 26 weeks of bringing you this amazing credit banking strategy week in and week out. And we hope that you continue on with us for another 26 weeks over on the Wise Guys and Ties YouTube channel. So for all of you out there in YouTube land, we want to say good night and God bless. The rest of you stay here with us as we are going to go ahead and move this over to the Wise Guys and Ties YouTube channel. All right, as soon as I figure out, there we go.